and I've been doing data analytics for about almost 20 years now, maybe 15 years. And then once I realized that data analytics is important and data was important, I could start seeing where data was fluctuating and where there was an issue. And in order to fix an issue, often that's when I started to turn to A/B testing. So I started doing a lot of A/B testing. So SEO, A/B testing, development, all of those things have one thing in common, and that's data. And Google Analytics sort of gives you that data. With Google Analytics, with some clients, I use Adobe Analytics, and that's about it. Right now, I live in the States. I'm in Florida, so that's about it.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I think we can get kicked off. Very excited to see what you've got to share with us today. We had a meeting with a client, and Michael did an analytics audit the other day, and it takes quite a lot to get a Neapolitan excited about data, and the words mind blowing came back in the group chat afterwards. So if you can get Neapolitans excited about data, then everyone's in for a ride here. So yeah, Michael, I'll let you take the floor, and we kind of, if people have questions, I'll just find natural points to bring them in, but for the most part, we'll let you do your thing. Yeah.
And let me just ask a few questions. So how many people have had experience with Google Analytics?
Ryan does.
Well, I mean, what do you mean by experience? I mean, like, how much experience?
Any experience, really? Have you spent any time in analytics?
Of course. Who hasn't?
Great. How about, has anyone got any experience writing code?
That's probably...
Trying to write code or writing code?
Writing code, like writing JavaScript or writing HTML or...
ChatGPT's got loads of experience in it.
Okay, so when I go through this, I am going to be talking a little bit about code. Do not get overwhelmed. You're not going to have to, like, you won't be tested on this. And hopefully I'll walk you through to the extent where it kind of makes sense to you. Let me just share my screen. Right. Okay, so I am going to start with just your basic analytics 101, right? So the first thing that you need to know is, for those who have no experience with any analytics, especially how it works, the whole idea of analytics is essentially it puts a little JavaScript initiation code on every page of your website. That code will not fire until the page loads, right? So if you load a page, an image comes up. Well, when that image comes up, what's happening is it's actually going to the internet and finding the image and presenting it onto that page. Analytics is the same thing. It's actually taking a 1-by-1 pixel, putting it on your website, and imagine this, right? If you go into a grocery store and when you walk in, the camera may register you as walking in. Well, on a server, when an image gets taken from a server, when you go request that image, it finds you, right? It says, oh, hey, this person just requested an image. Who is this person? And it gets all this information. So when that data, that JavaScript gets initiated, it fires off a pixel that sends it to Google, right? So, but the page does have to load, just to let you know. You can do it in a back end, and there can be some complicated things, but essentially all it is the same as an image. As soon as the page loads and that image loads, it actually goes and collects, goes to the server. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you're going to have to place it in your head and in your body. So it doesn't actually sit in the main code of the website. It actually sits in the head and the body. And for me, for this presentation, I'm going to talk about Tag Manager to do that, not analytics code. You can do it two ways. One, you can take the analytics code and natively go and write the code onto every single page. But the best practice, and that's how I'm going to discuss in today's meeting, is using Tag Manager. And Tag Manager, as you can see, it gives you two little sets of code, two little JavaScript code. One goes in the head and one goes in the body, right? And boom, once you've got that, the data can now get sent and received. So the first thing it does is it collects it. The data gets collected, right? So the browser executes a JavaScript code, which is embedded, it's snippet, and and it does exactly what I just said. It goes, it gets information, and sends it back to Google, right? As long as that page loads. However, you can actually use a data layer. So a website data layer is a structured format of storing and parsing data between websites. So if you actually go to iSuits, right? And you say, well, show me what this data layer looks like. You can see, oops, that's not too flat. Let's do JSON. You can see when this page loads, all of this data is sitting on the page. None of it is going to analytics. This is for the page itself, right? So the page then uses this information. So for example, it might go and use this JSON to show things on the page. But because this data is available in the browser, when that item fires, when your analytics code fires, this kind of information, anything that's available in a data layer, you can fire as well. So when this page loads, you could fire that all, and in fact, it is being fired. This event fires and it's view item list. And it fires and says, whoever loaded this page saw this item, saw this item, saw this item. Now, it's maybe not the best practice to do it this way because in fact, I haven't seen those items, right? I'd have to scroll down to see those items. So essentially, if I go to the navigation, I never actually saw those items. But all I'm saying is that when the page loads, it fires off the pixel, it gets your information, but you can take a ton of information and fire it off at the same time. All right, so that's your data layer. By the way, when it sends the data to Google, it's kind of interesting. It uses what's called an HTTP request. And an HTTP request looks like this. So it sends this whole thing to Google. And essentially what that's like is this. This is a website I built 100 million years ago. So if you look at this website, right? If I click on, let's say, Whistler, this is a place, the URL changes and it says the town is Whistler. The page takes this information and only loads the Whistler ones. When I click on Victoria, again, this changes to Victoria downtown, and it only shows the downtown. So this right here is an HTTP request. It's like an HTTP request. And that's how Google essentially gets its information. It just sends all that information, and it says, like when I hit that page, it said that, for example, let's see if something is readable. Yeah, probably not. Chromium. I'm on a Pixel book. So I'm using Chromium. I'm in Chrome. So it collects a whole bunch of information and sends it to Google. And that's essentially how Google gets the information. Another way that it gets that information is if you use that data layer, you can grab information. If you use the request, you can send it information. But you can also give it information, feed it information. And that's UTM tracking. And I'm sure you've probably used UTM tracking. My neighbor just started mowing the lawn, so just let me know if it gets too loud. You can use the UTM tracking. And UTM tracking is essentially the same thing. So when you go to a UTM tracker, a UTM builder, you say, put in my website, put in the campaign ID, put in the source. So let's say I'm sending out a newsletter. The campaign's coming, I'm going to send the newsletter by email. And the newsletter is all about this new brand that we're advertising, right? When you put all that in, it spits out this. So when you put that link in your newsletter, you're going to put this link. And it's going to have what's called a UTM code. And the UTM source equals newsletter. The medium equals email. The campaign equals new brand. And the ID equals 168. And essentially, when that hits the website, when this hits the website, so if I take this, and I go to iSuits and I put it in, when that hits the website, and Google will take all of this information and fire it off to the analytics. Anytime you use question mark, UTM, and whatever, Google recognizes all those parameters and fires it off. So you can either collect data by just the page load, uploading the page, using the data layer, using a UTM code, or feeding it information. Okay, so that's essentially that's how analytics gets the information. That's how the data flows from your browser to the website to the Google. It can vary a little bit. For example, if you have an app, right? So apps sometimes work a little bit differently. So you actually have to use a different kind of base code for that. If you have what's called like a SPA, a single page application, and we're going to get through that in a minute. So there's some nuances that might happen depending on the website, but essentially those are the three ways that most people collect their data. All right. Once the data comes into analytics, it gets processed and formatted. Okay. So for example, Google has a bot tracking engine, and a bot tracking engine. I don't know if any of you have ever found a bot on a website, but if you find a bot on a website, usually it's coming from a single computer, and usually that computer has the same attribution because it's one computer. So the screen size is the same, the operating system is the same, the location is the same, the city is the same. So if you find a certain spike in traffic and it's coming, and you look at that spike and you go, "Oh, what happened to that day? We didn't sell anything, but we had a bunch of traffic." And you go break it down, you say, "Oh, it was all coming from this one little town in Indonesia on a computer that's from the 80s." So it's obviously a bot. Well, Google has a bot engine that if it finds those, it will actually, when it's processing that information, it won't put it into your analytics. If it's a known bot, it processes that information. Even though the bot hits your website and your analytics fires, it processes that and goes, "No, don't want it. Don't want this. Will not put it into your data." The same thing is if you have let's say a referral. Sometimes from an SEO point of view, if someone wants to really get your SEO down, they'll go to a company in Russia or something that'll put your links on a million websites, but they're all terrible spammy websites. When Google sees sees that you've got all these spammy websites hitting you, it might drop your rank, right? So you can actually go in and from an SEO point of view, you can go to you can do certain things on the back end. But that data, you can, in your processing rules, you can say any referrer coming from these websites don't include it. So you can use the bot that Google uses, which you will anyway. That's automatic. But you can add to it, and you can say this referrer, don't add it. This referrer, don't add it. Any data coming from that. You have to be a little bit careful. Sometimes if you have a specific bot, it may not be coming from a site. And in fact, often another way you'll know it's a bot is your referrer will say, the URL will be something like getmoretraffic.com. And you're like, where's all this? Why am I getting all this traffic from getmoretraffic.com? And you'll click on it and you'll go to it and it's landing page will be like, hey, do you want more traffic to your website? We'll help you get it. It's a bot. So once the data starts coming in, you can process it and you can format it. And the formatting we'll talk about in a minute. So for example, formatting. There are a bunch of custom things that you can change in your analytics. And one of them is the page referrer. So where are people coming from? And we're going to go through the metrics in a minute. But where are people coming from? And Facebook now has a bunch of different places that it can come from, right? One is a click. One is a referrer, one is on the app, there's just so many different ways. You may want to say, you know what, these are all Facebook, whether it's touch, IM, FIM, it doesn't matter. Whether it's mobile, whether it's laptop, doesn't matter. And so you can go in and create a code that says, take all of these when they come in and just call it facebook.com. So that's where you can do your format. You can format data. It's very dangerous, right? If you go and create the format, you have to sometimes use code to do that, right? So you sometimes have to use what we call regex code that says, if something has this, but not this, and includes that, call it this. And if you make a small mistake, a dash is wrong, something is wrong, all that data just disappears. You've essentially told it to do something with it. It doesn't know what to do, and it could completely mess with the data. So just be careful. That can be complicated. All right, well, when it sends it, so now the data sending. So one of the things that you can do is it will send a whole bunch of information. As I said, you can feed it information. You can use the data layer to send it information. You can use UTM codes to send information. You can send information a whole bunch of different ways. But one of the other things is you can create events. And I'm not sure, sorry, who it was that had the analytics experience, but most people that have analytics experience is essentially they're using the old analytics. GA4 is a little bit more complicated and in a really, really good way. It's a really, really bad way. If you're a novice and you're trying to learn it, it's really, really hard. The old analytics was much easier to learn. But the reason for that is because it's so much more powerful. And one of the things that makes it more powerful are events. Back in the day, we used to fire off events like crazy, but you had to manually code them. Now it's much easier to fire off events and you can actually do so much more with events. But because of that, GA4 has kind of moved away from page views. Back in the day, 10 years ago, we just looked at pages. I don't remember how old you guys are, but I'm old enough to remember that before analytics, we used to write a little bit of JavaScript. And when you loaded a page at the bottom left-hand corner, it would say your visitor number 487,623. So, you know, we used to grab all this information and just put it on a page. That doesn't happen anymore. We don't care about pages. I don't care how many times a page is being reviewed. I really, really don't. I want to know how many people came to that page, how many sessions were on that page, what kind of engagement happened. Did they click on anything? Did they scroll? There's so many more things that are so much more important than how many pages reviewed. So one of them is the custom events. And one of them, for example, I'm just going to talk about scroll depth. It comes out, scroll depth we didn't have in the old UI, but we do have in GA4. And it's out of the box. You just automatically get it. So if you put analytics on your page, it will actually track your scroll. But it will only track if you go to 10% or 90%. And I want to know, what about 20%, 40%, 60%? Like, I want to know how far they go down. Those kind of events are, again, where we can send that information. So you can write some code on your page that says, as they scroll down, look at the pixels for the entire page. And when they get 10% down, fire a pixel. When they get 20%, fire it. For 30%, fire it. 40%, fire it. So we can then spoon feed analytics as people use the page. You can use scroll depth, how far they go down, or you can use scroll direction. Do they go left? Do they go right? Do they go up? Do they go down? I know that sounds silly, but I had one client that they were getting maybe 4% of people were viewing their stuff on a TV or on a screen that was absolutely humongous, and they were scrolling left to right. So we tracked left to right, up and down, everything, right? So you can track it. That's the scroll depth. The other thing you can do is real time, right? So real time tracking is, and again, we didn't have that in GA, but we now have it in GA4. It comes out of the box. And real-time tracking, why would you want to track something in real time, right? It just makes no sense, right? Well, there are actually two reasons why you would do it. Two reasons, maybe three, but let's just use these two for example. One is I run a Twitter campaign, and a Twitter campaign we ran for a big client, the NHL.com, and they had a banner. If you wanted to watch the site in their browser, they had a banner, and it was one of the big stars. I don't know if anyone watches hockey. I lived in Canada long enough to get an appreciation for it. One of the big players was coming back, and they'd been injured for 2 years or something, and they were coming back, and they were like the best player in Canada. So we ran a banner that if you clicked on it, it would take you to a site, and you could actually send him a message and say, hey, welcome back. And we wanted to know in real time, because the banner was there, the game was on for 2 hours, but the people were clicking and they would see their thing across the banner. Hey, welcome back to the NHL sent by so-and-so. And that kind of information we needed to know in real time. We needed to know, were people clicking on it? How many people were not clicking on it? Should we change the copy? We're not getting enough clicks. We needed that in real time because we were tracking it in real time. And with analytics, and I'm just going to quickly show you, one of the things that comes out of GA4, and again, this is the iSuits, is real time. And so you can now click on real time and get that information of what's happening on their site in real time. It's not a great deal of information, and in fact, it's quite often it's not 100% accurate, but it'll tell you, right? So in real time, it'll tell you right now they've got 31 visits in the last 30 minutes. They're mostly coming direct or from Google. They've added to cart. They've some purchases. These are the things that they've, the pages they've gone to, etc., and that's all in real time. So this is the sort of thing that you may want to do if you're doing like a Facebook ad, and your Facebook ad is during a Facebook live event, right? Or a TikTok live event. All of those sort of things you may want to track in real time. It's not something we did before. Just to let you know.
And just while we're here, because I know a lot of the group here are focused around getting that early traction with organic search, right?
Right.
So just as a sidebar here, so how would you apply this to the early stages of a brand coming up? You know, like oftentimes what we're doing here in this group is we're testing, you know, new strategies, we're testing new ways of blogging, new schedules, new ways of writing the content. We're testing AI. How would you go about like verifying that, say, a posting schedule or an article format is matching up with the user experience in this context?
Right. So unfortunately, what you have to do is you have to think of it, and we've had this conversation, Rowan, is you have to think of it as a campaign. Do not think of it as a channel. So if you've got SEO, you're writing those blogs. If you've got Facebook, the social media, and you're putting that out. If you've got paid media, don't think of it as a channel. Don't think of how's this one doing, how's that one doing, how's that. Really, what you need to do is put those UTM codes on with your campaign ID. And then what you do is, let's say you have a TikToker, an influencer, right? That's going to do a live event, and they're going to talk about your product, and they're going to have a button at the bottom. That button at the bottom is going to have a UTM code. You want to know not just how many people came from TikTok. You need to know how many people came from that particular TikTok person, right? So it's no good to know that they came from TikTok because you don't know how many of these conversions can I attribute to the influencer. So what you do is for a live event on TikTok, for example, you may set up a dashboard that looks at real time and looks at certain metrics that you're hoping to see from the influencer. And the best way to, the most real-time example I have of that is I've worked with clients that have, let's say, 4 influencers. And when influencers do something, or you get them to do something, the best way to do it, the best way to test it, is they do it at the same time. There's no use, one does it on Monday, next one on Wednesday, next one on Thursday. I know that makes sense because you get a much larger audience. But the problem with that is if you want to look at your 5 influencers and see which one did best, it's not really fair for the person that did it on the Wednesday because your traffic is much higher than on the Monday.
For sure.
So you have to run them simultaneously. So you're going to run that and you're going to look at real data, but you're going to look at it from a campaign level. SEO, obviously, you're going to do the blog posts and anything that goes out, links coming in, you're going to look at all of those things, but not in real time, right? That's when you're going to put up a dashboard and you're going to want to see this gradual lift in traffic based on rank. I'll get to in a minute how you can then, and it's part of this presentation, how you can use external data to actually verify whether it's good.
I'm with you. No, it makes a lot of sense. It's just, I think a big thing people struggle with is like, how can I verify that what I'm doing is going to result in a positive response, right? Like if I go and hire an influencer, or if I go and try this new strategy, like how can I verify that it's going to make sense for the business? So yeah, interesting. But I love that. I mean, think of it as a campaign rather than a channel. Like, so if you're going to do a campaign, it's not just about like, oh, I'm going to do this social ad or I'm going to do these blogs. You need to think of it as like you're targeting a group of people with a specific, you know, set of requirements, and you're attacking it on all levels, not just isolating it by channel. I think that's kind of an interesting take on it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, all your different, so your campaign, you're going to create a dashboard looking at that campaign, but then you'll break it out by channel. And you're right, your content creation channel, your SEO channel, it's going to be data over the next 6 months. Your influencer is going to be almost real time, right? Or at least you're going to analyze it within 24 hours to figure out which of those influencers, you know, was got more converted, and or which two you're going to drop two and keep two, kind of. So yeah, it's difficult. And the thing is, when you let me give you another example. If you're going to do an A/B test, right, and you're going to say, I want to change the copy at the top of the suit page, or let's say the shoe page. Right? I'm going to change the copy on the top of the suits page, or the shoes page. When you run that A/B test and you have like 4 different variants of copy and with a link, with a button that says buy now, when you look at that data that comes in, right, you're going to look at that in almost real time, right? Because you're going to look at see how the variations are happening. But as with all of your campaigns, whether it's A/B testing, whether it's SEO, whether it's paid, whether it's social, whether it's earned, is think of KPIs. What is your KPI? And I know we all want to sell more shoes. That's always the KPI, but it's not your KPI. In case it's not. From your SEO or from social media, for example, Facebook, that's definitely not your KPI, because no one comes from Facebook and buys the shoes and leaves. That just doesn't happen. It normally takes 3, 4, 5 visits. It takes, 17 times they've read your post, but at the 8th time they buy. So it's the lifetime value of that customer, as opposed to it happens in real time like the TikTok post, right? So, but what you're going to do is you're going to have KPIs. You're going to say, okay, I know this person from Facebook isn't going to buy my products in the next week, but I want to make sure that when they hit the page, they don't bounce. They don't leave immediately. A. B, do they sign up for a newsletter? Do they sign up for anything that we can then spoon feed them and create this sort of lead? 3, do they visit more than 2 pages, right? Or do they actually go and add something to cart? You're going to have all these KPIs for the entire journey, not how many shoes did you sell, because Facebook's going to be 0. So you're going to think it's a terrible campaign, but it's not, because how many people actually signed up or what is it, like? I don't even know what they do on Facebook anymore. They liked you, whatever, right? So now they're part of your thing, your ecosystem, right? And you can now, every time you post a special offer, they're going to see it, and boom, you've got a great lead, right? So when you have a new thing that is going to hit and you're trying something different, figure out at least 3 or 4 KPIs. And guardrail. A guardrail is important in the sense that if you are selling more shoes, let's take hotel. I do some work for Disney World, right? So Disney World, they have tickets and they have packages. And packages is a ticket and a room. Well, if I sell more tickets and I'm doing great, but my packages go down, then that means I'm actually making less money. So it's great. My campaign is to sell more tickets, but I've got to check my guardrail. What is the campaign guardrail? Am I selling less packages, right? So sometimes your KPI is all these good things, but you've got to check certain things to make sure that they don't go.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Like with the motor check example, when you came to work with that client of ours, their revenue went up by 47%, but not just because they sold more, but because they sold more of a higher value product. So yeah, that makes total sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so you now have it. You're collecting information or data. You're spoon feeding Google. You're doing all this stuff, getting sent. Everything's working. You've got real time with your Twitter campaign, and then it stores all this data in GA4. Stores it for you. You can, even the GA. I think I've got data that goes back almost 20 years, so it's not a problem. How do you create a Google account, right? So let's say you've got WordPress, Spotify, Shopify, or Spas, for example, right? So you're going to create an integration setup. So you're going to go create an account. You're going to install the tracking code. Now, again, that's in the head and in the body. Shopify, for example, if you have clients using WordPress or Magento or these older CMSs that are selling products, move them to Shopify as soon as you can.
Is that right, Hamish?
It's amazing, right? Shopify, literally, you go put in just your code and it just works out of the box. You'll have all your analytics, all your add to cart, all your views, it just comes out of the box like a charm. Whereas if you use Magento, I cannot even begin to tell you how
well, this is the thing, right? So when Hamish started working with the owner of iSuit, Hamish said to him, look, can I go and create a Shopify site on the side? And Hamish's goal has always been to outgrow the Magento site, and that's twomen.it, and we're almost there. But yeah, iSuit is Magento, and it's painful. It's painful.
I didn't even realize that. I wouldn't have said it. But anyway, yeah, so it is. It's a painful, terrible CMS because it's so old, right? Okay, anyway, so Shopify, very easy. In the theme, in theme files, there's a place where you can put that in. Put your ID and boom, it works out the thing. And you can even put e-commerce. WordPress, you can use a plugin. I don't personally use a plugin for WordPress, only because plugin break sometimes they get deprecated. A or B, and B they go down the page. Any plugin is going to slow down your page. So you can actually go create a child and you can actually go into the code and add your code manually. So it actually sits in the code. But that's up to you. So there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. If you have a website that someone has actually hand coded, so rare today. I mean, I just saw a thing the other day that Wix, you can now go, you log into Wix and you can now use AI by prompt. You can say, build me a website that has this, and it just goes, right? So if you have a website that is actually hand coded, no one does these days, but if you do hand code it, you have to go in and actually add the code to every single page. And there's special ways you can do that. Okay. Then once you've got the code installed, you've created your account, you've got it installed, you've used this, we're going to use Shopify for this example, and everything's done. You've got to go in your GA4 and Google got clever. They gave you all this stuff out of the box, right? Scroll and all engagement, all the stuff that you didn't have before, but all of it takes a memory and space to store. So when it comes out of the box, they give you your e-commerce, they'll give you a purchase, but they won't give you anything else. You actually have to go into GA and set up e-commerce track, enhanced e-commerce track. So if you want to know how many people looked at a product and how many people that looked at a product actually bought the product or added it to cart, all of that data you need to go do in manual. It's not that hard anymore, but you have to go in. So that's the first. Second thing, you want to create some custom event, right? As I said, scroll. Great to know that people scroll, but you may want to know how far this. Engagement comes right out of the box. Google will tell you 72% of people engaged with this page. I want to know what that means. Did they click on something? Did they scroll? If they clicked on something, what did they click? If I have a big fat button at the top left-hand, right hand of my website on every single page that says click here to see our special offer, I may want to know which page drives the most traffic. So I don't want to know that they clicked something. I want to know what they clicked. So you can create all these custom events that track everything. And I am one of those people, by the way, track every single thing. I have never, ever in my 20 years of doing this, no one's ever come to me and said, I've got this data. And I've gone, oh no, I don't need that. I don't want that. I've never, ever said, never. You know how many times a client has come to me and said they've got a problem, they want to fix it. Can I look at this? And I'm like, well, you don't have that data. Oh yeah, that pixel didn't fire for 2 months. Gone. You can't get it back. You can't go back in history and put it there and get it back. It's gone. So I've never ever. So I'm one of those people who create all your events and track everything.
And just a quick one, guys, as well, because this came up in the other session. I'm sure you're going to cover it partly, Michael, but like if we think of this at a very basic foundational level, right? You're all following Hamish's strategies on creating content and things like that. Wouldn't it be beautiful if you knew out of everyone who visited a blog post, how many went on take the desired action? We have a photographer in here, we have a blogger in here, we have some e-commerce people in here, but like even just that as the most basic level, surely you can see how important that is, because you can see the exact return and potential from each article. If you know that on average every article gets 30 clicks through to a product and then out of that 2 buys, this is really important data. And last time we went through some of the conversion rate stuff from a visual aspect, but what Michael's going through now is the backup. It's the foundation of it all. So well, what I might ask everyone to do is, Michael will continue for the moment, but in the WhatsApp group, let me know if there was one simple thing that you wished you could track, then pop it in the group chat and we'll see, can we cover something like that once Michael has gone through some of the basics here.
Yes, and just to let you know, Wendy, everyone's like everyone, especially GA4. GA4 is so complicated and hard. I'll give you an example, right? You know how many people I've seen go to GA4 and the first thing you see is this report snapshot, right? And you go, oh look, 82,000 people from February for the last 28 days, 82,000 people, 66,000 new users. The average engagement time is 1 minute. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh look, we've only got 10 people from the US, only 4. Oh, but they don't notice. It's real time. This isn't good data. Don't look at this. I don't know why they put that on the snapshot. It's just so bad. Look at this. User acquisition. All of this other information, all of it is for that period, but not this one. So trust me, I've had many clients panic at 3 o'clock in the morning, send me an email going, they're not getting any traffic from country. And I'm like, you're looking at real data and no one's on your website, right? So don't worry. But I am going to get into that. Do not use GA4, and we'll get into why in a minute, or at least don't use the UI. Okay. Oh, I was going to show you this. Yes. As Rowan pointed out, this on their website, that is prime real estate. Prime. But those 2 things are 99.9% of people that hit their website are going to see those 2. Now imagine you click on this, it takes you to a page. You click on this, it takes you to a page. Both of those pages get 1,000 visitors a day. But imagine this, of all the clicks between these 2, this one gets 99.9. This one gets 1,000 people a day clicking on it. This one gets 5 people a week. Then prime real estate. Why do we have a thing there that no one is using? The image. Let's do a whole bunch of things to actually get people to click on it. But you may want to know not just how many people went to this page or how many people went to this page, but literally, is it being used? And that has to be an event. Goal tracking. What I do, and as I said now, your KPIs. When you have a campaign that that goes out. Yes, you want to sell more shoes, but think about goals. If someone signs up for your newsletter, that should be a goal. Someone did something you wanted them to do. If someone adds something to cart, that's a goal. If someone goes and reads your blog post and then goes to the e-commerce site, that's a goal. If someone reads more than 3 pages, variations of a goal, but each one of those should be a goal. So when you go set up your GA, go set up your goal. Make sure that viewed more than 3 pages is a goal. All of those things are goals. So set those up. Audience insights. Insights used to be called goals. They're now called insights. It used to be in the old days, we create an alert that said, if traffic from social media hitting my site goes up by 50% compared to the previous week, let me know. If it drops by 50%, let me know. And like, for example, in the one I gave the iSuits guy is, if you have someone that gets on an airplane and they're flying to South Africa and they tweet out something racist and that tweet goes viral and they get on the plane, they're on a plane for the next 3 days. They have no idea what's going on. But people see this and they want to know, who is this person? And they find her and she's an executive at some company. That website's going to get hit, right? It's going to be completely hit. And when that happens, you're going to get a spike. And some influencer on Facebook will say, oh my goodness, someone on Twitter, look what this person just tweeted. Traffic from Facebook, Twitter is just going to spike. When that happens, you want to get an alert. You want to get some sort of alert that says, whoa, you just got a spike from Twitter. That is, you're up 800%. You go find it. You see this person's done this terrible thing. You're going to go turn off all your paid media. You're going to turn them all off because everyone's going to go search for you on Google and they're going to click on that ad. They're going to click on that ad. Not because they want to take money from you, but that's just top link, the first link. They're going to click on it. So you're going to pay for all these jerks that are coming to your website to tell you what a jerk you are. So don't pay for that. So you want these insights. So these insights in the old days, up 50%, down 20%, up 30%. We used to do that. Now it uses AI and it's just considered an anomaly. AI will figure out, is this an anomaly? If it is, something's happening with your social media or something's happening with your SEO or something's happening on this particular page. You may never need them, but it's one of those things. The last thing you can do is your integration with Google Ads. So your analytic, really, you need to integrate it with other things, right? So the two included, you have to do it, is obviously AdWords, Google product, right? So AdWords and Search Console. Both of those are Google products. Bring them into your analytics. You're going to integrate with all those. Okay. Sometimes when you do analytics, you're going to run into trouble. You're going to run into problems. And the biggest problem are spas. So spas are single page application. And really web design has moved to single page application. And I love a perfect example of a single page application is Gmail. If you go to Gmail in the browser and you click on send and then you click on inbox, it doesn't reload. The page doesn't go away and then come back. It doesn't reload. It uses what's called an AJAX call. It just goes to the server and gives you your info. So the page never loads. It loads the first time you go there. That's it. It actually will load a whole bunch of libraries. It'll load all what the page looks like. All of that's loaded the first time. So the problem with the spa is, remember I told you, your analytics code will fire when the page loads. So if you're using a spa and you go to inbox and then you go to outbox, it didn't reload. The site didn't reload. From an SEO point of view, if you've got a page, like I said, and it brings up all the information for London, but if you pick up, Manchester, and it brings up all the information for Manchester, well, that's the same page, right? It's just using an AJAX call. So that's a problem. So there are certain problems that you're going to have to fix. Just to let you know, spas, it's dynamic content, uses JavaScript. It loads the JavaScript, HTML, and CSS all at once. It uses templating, so you can use React and Angular to create these templates, and it uses data fetching like AJAX. You're going to run into stuff like that, and there's just an idea. And all it does is it actually uses XML, and I've actually got an example of so XML, just for your SEO people on the call, uses XML, and it's the same as your sitemap. If you look at this sitemap, and it's almost like a data layer. And if I go in there, so there's your sitemap, right? Well, essentially the same thing. It's an XML document, but when the page loads, all this information is loaded. So when you click on, Fuller Laundry book, you click on that information out. You click on this, it puts this information. All of that in the browser, it's already there. So it's very difficult to track in analytics because the page is not loaded. And so there's other problems you're going to run into with that. But there's just an idea of how it works. Goes to the server, comes back with the HTML, builds out your Gmail page, and then the AJAX call uses JavaScript to make a request on the server, and the server gives you the information in it. So that's how analytics works. How you get it, how it's stored, how it's used, what you can do with it, what you can't do, what you should do with it. So common one obviously is users, how many users. Sessions. Sessions have become a big thing in GA4. And a session is every 30 minutes. You sit down and you go to a page and your girlfriend calls you and you pick up the phone, you have a chat with her for 55 minutes. When you go back to the page and you refresh that page, it's a new session. So you're the same user, but it's the second session, okay? If you go in and you send yourself a link on Gmail or whatever, and you open your phone and you click on that link and it now opens it on the phone, a second session, right? And we now want to know, back in the day, all you cared was how many people hit the page and then went and bought your product. Now we want to know how many people did it in that session, right? We want to know how many people are doing it in the session. If we are trying to get more people people hitting that front page, getting them into the funnel, not to add to cart. So you want to know when they hit that in the same session, did they do what you want them to do? So sessions become a big thing. That's why average session duration. How long? If you do not do anything for 30 minutes, fine, you get kicked out. But if you keep clicking and scrolling, whatever, it will track your whole session duration. Engagement rate, right? It's great to know that engagement rate, people engage, but really, 50% of people engaging or 30%, you kind of want to know that rate. Google, the problem with the engagement rate, just to give you a little bit of a spiel, is that sometimes, and not some, all the time, if someone scrolls, that is engaged, right? They've engaged. Back in the day, especially blog posting and SEO, if you had a blog post and it is someone took a photo of Justin Bieber without a shirt on, right? And you paste it on your blog and you put it out on social media, and suddenly you get all this traffic because people want to see the picture of Justin Bieber without a shirt on. We used to track, and that'd be a bounce. They come, they see the picture, and they leave, right? So that's a bounce. Your bounce rate's almost 100%. So that terrible traffic. They didn't even read the thing. But now we want to track if they scroll. Or they're at least reading the article. If they read the article, it's a soft bounce, not a bounce, soft bounce, because they actually scroll. They actually did read the article. They took the information in. So for now, for engagement rate, that scroll counts as engagement. So literally, it's really hard to do a hard bounce anymore because most people scroll a little bit just to make sure they're on the wrong page. That's engagement. Bounce rate, to let you know too, when GA4 first came out, bounce rate was not a metric. They moved away from it completely. And I know it sounds crazy not to use bounce rate.
Well, it's basically gone now, huh?
No, it's back.
Oh, it's back.
I think there was enough people that sent requests going, how do I find my bounce rate? I can't find bounce rate. Where's bounce rate? That they finally said, okay, we'll put it.
Okay, right.
But what they moved to is users and active users, right? So an active user means they're engaged. They're engaging. User is everybody. So you would look at your bounce rate. When that happened, when I was doing work for all sorts of clients, they all asked me for the bounce rate. I actually went and created a custom metric that said divide the number of users divided by active users, and that's yours. So it's back.
So just one question that I've always wondered about bounce rate is if someone comes to a page and they get the information they need, they spend 40 seconds on there, is it a bounce if they leave straight away?
So a bounce technically is they viewed one page.
Right. So they could have actually had a great experience.
Correct. So blogs are famous for that. As I said, people are not going to go read your blog. All they care about is seeing a picture of Justin Bieber without his shirt on. That's it. That's why they're there. So it's very rare that someone will see the picture of Justin Bieber and then go, ooh, I also want to find out about, some famous, right?
Someone else.
It happens. And if you are cunning enough on your blog to actually put links to certain other blog posts in there and have a rail and A/B test images, yeah, you can get that bounce rate down.
I think this is pivotal right now, because most of the stuff that we look at, right, when someone comes to us and they say my blog isn't converting, or I'm getting all this traffic but none of it's converting, my conversion rate is so low, etc. I think that's because maybe we're not setting up appropriate journeys from there. But that's such a hard thing to do in a way, because you might be doing an informational blog about we have this client at the moment who sells patio cleaner, and we're getting loads of people to the blog, but they're not actually going anywhere. And how do you effectively, or in a simple way, in your opinion, Michael, how do you get someone to come and get some good information and then move them along in the funnel? Is it a CTA? Is it another blog post? Is it a product embedded?
Using data, you can figure out, for example, which blog posts get that traffic, right? Which blog posts get the traffic from one page to another, right? Which don't bounce. And you can go look at that page and go, why? Why is this one different? And you could say, oh, look at this. We've got a link that's above the fold. Or we have an image just below the fold. So they have to go below that image, and below that there's a link. Or C, we have contextual link, not just link. You can't just, you can, people do, more information or get information on this, whatever. You can do that, but it's got to be contextual, right? So if you're talking about a specific thing, highlight, and from an SEO point of view, you're going to do this anyway. You're going to highlight a string. You're not going to put click here for more information.
Yeah, the anchor text has got to be relevant.
Right. So you're going to highlight that. Well, obviously that anchor text is very important because, and you A/B test this. You totally A/B test which get more clicks. If you use this text or this text or this text or this text, and whoever text wins, boom, you start formulating. Oh, if you put the actual brand name in the text, people have a thing. Or if you put the word page, we have it on this page. That whatever. There are certain things that you can do that move us up. The right rail on a blog, I don't even know if iSuits has it. Your right rail is pivotal, right? Because people are going to read the thing. thing, but unless you show them where else to go, they're not going to go there. There's no
Yeah.
reason for them. And I know people use the top 5 blog posts, whatever, most commonly. I don't think that works. I've done many A/B tests that show contextual works much better than the top 5. Fine, put the top 1 on top because obviously that's your top 1 for a reason, but contextualize, right?
Yeah.
So make it relevant to whatever they're reading.
So the same category of information or something along those lines.
Anything that you can do to convince them that, hey, you're interested in this, we've got other information on that. And, there's ways that you can get them to the main site, but that sometimes gets a little dodgy.
Yeah, well, that also feels like the secret sauce in a way, is how you can meaningfully get someone from a random blog post onto a product page.
Well, the easiest way to do it is to make the content so good and have a big fat red button at the bottom that says, join our email list and we'll send you every time we get more information on this or whatever, right? So they didn't go to your main page. They didn't leave that page. They were softbound, but you can send them information and you have to get them back to your site. Most blogs are going to leave after one. There are definitely, obviously, certain things that you can do to mitigate that, but essentially that's probably going to happen. But your KPI then is get them to sign up for a newsletter. Get them involved where you can get them back. And when you get them back to the site, you're not going to get them back to the blog because they didn't go from the blog. You're going to put a landing page. You're going to create a specific landing page that has the content, product that they can buy, all on that one freaking page, right? And there's a million ways you can do that. But each company's different, each product is different.
For sure. I think the takeaway is the same though for the group, right? If you're blogging and you're getting traction on your blogs, make sure that you're using them as a place to spread people out throughout the rest of your offerings. And like Michael says, that doesn't necessarily need to be purchased because, we're not converting on the first visit necessarily, but if you can get them some way involved in the brand, onto another article, onto a newsletter, onto a landing page, back to the homepage, just get them moving from your blog content and keep the journey going.
And I'm sure you've seen the JavaScript takeovers where you go to close the page and the thing hits you in the face that says, hey, don't leave. If you click on this, we'll give you a 10%, whatever. Everybody hates those. But there's a reason why they're popular, right? The data shows they will, right? Yes, every time I see something on the internet and I start seeing it more and more and more and more, I know it's working because there are people like me that when you come to me and you give me a page that takes over the whole freaking page and you come to me and say, can you do an analysis on our website? The first thing I'm going to look at is see, is that a positive or negative impact? Is it a positive impact or is it negative? Is that causing people to get upset or is it causing people to, actually move to that page? If it's not moving people, get rid of it. But that's all data driven. All right, events. So obviously bounce rate, page views. Everybody knows what a page view is. That's now an event. It used to be a different thing in analytics. Events, again, I'm a big proponent of events, and I know I'm right about events because when GA4 came out, everything was event. So, and conversion rate, we all know what that is. But please, conversion rate is not buying a product, right? Conversion rate is going to 2 pages. Conversion rate is adding something to your cart. Conversion rate is clicking on follow us on Facebook. There's a bunch of conversion rate. Every website should have at least 10. Goal completions, we obviously know what that is. Revenue, we know what that is. User engagement, we know what that is. Acquisition metrics. So there's a bunch of acquisition metrics now in Google Analytics. Google Analytics, just to frustrate you some more, do you see how this looks? Well, Google is using AI for a lot of things these days. And guess what? This navigation based on AI. So when you look at one client at a GA and then you go to another one, it's going to look different. The places are going to be in a different place. Not going to be the same place. It can be very, very confusing. Like right now, they've got a lead generation. Some websites don't have lead generation. That link is not there, right? So if you get used to your lead generation link and then you get another client and you go to their GA and there's no lead generation, you're like, well, what? They use AI. So it is not the easiest thing in the world.
I guess
But
basically blank because
it's terrible. And you know what? They have 2 years. Do they? Yeah, user acquisition and traffic acquisition. So we're really looking at acquisition, like what drove this person to come to the website and do something. Acquisition, not just, we don't really care about how many pages did this person view, but how did we acquire, right? So that's a big gain for GA4. So you got acquisition metrics, you got retention metrics, right? If someone comes back if you could actually, looking at the data, you can figure out how long it takes before someone buys a product, how long it takes before someone actually signs up for a newsletter, how long it takes before they move from the blog to how many blog page visits do you need to get before they buy something, etc., etc. So we've got all this retention metrics that you can now look at. Audience demographics. Audience demographics are good, but they can be misused. They're great in the sense that the way Google figures out its audience demographics is if someone uses your site and they've used someone else's site where they've logged in and they've logged in on that other site that has Google Analytics. They've logged in and they've said, hi, my name is Judy Smith. I am Mrs. Judy Smith. So when they hit your site, Google knows that they're female. So you can get all these metrics that you're not, like, there's no way to tell. And again, a shared computer may come across as female, but in actual fact, it's being used by 12 people. But that's how they collect all these audience demographics. And audience demographics is very important, because if you look at the female to male ratio, and let's say your female to male ratio is 50-50 on your website, but your suits, because all these girlfriends want to get their boyfriends or husbands new suit, right? But they're not buying them. They're then going to them and saying, that's the one you should buy. So your purchase rate is 85% male, but your visitation rate is 85% female. You've got to look at how you're going to impact marketing, right? How is that going to impact your paid media? Are you going to go after male or female, right? Yes, you want to go after the male because they're buying all your product, but you want to go after the females because they're all the ones coming and then passing that information on. But you don't want to spend as much on the female because they're not the ones buying, etc., etc. So you can use all these demographics. Another one example is I did some work for Yellowtail, so a wine company out of Australia, and they had, I think, like 2 million people in their newsletter. And what would happen is they brought me on board to do some other stuff for them. And then one day I saw a newsletter. I signed up, I did all the stuff, and I got their newsletter. And I noticed they weren't tracking the news. I said, hey, let's get your analytics on the newsletter. Let's track that as well. And they have, I don't know, 20 different kinds of wine. But they send out this newsletter, 2 million people, and they wanted to track how to know which newsletters got the most engaged, which worked best. And we created a button that says, hey, if you want to get a 10% discount, click here to, get the 10% discount. And I said, well, what if we did something different? What if, in fact, instead of that, you have a contest that you can win a free case of wine, and all you have to do is fill out the form. But on the newsletter, have a red wine and a white wine. And when they click on the red wine and they fill out the form, when you send out newsletters, you're actually going to send out two now. You're going to send out a newsletter to all the red wine people, and you're going to send out a newsletter to all the white wine, so that when they get a newsletter, the images and everything in the newsletter is targeted towards them, right? So that kind of user information, that audience demographics, you kind of want to know that. You want to know, not the demographics per se, but that audience information, you want to know that. It's really important. Form abandonment rate, that's a new one. I don't know if you guys know what this is, but if you start a form, in the old days, the good old days, it was a real pain in the butt to figure out, the code you had to write to figure out how many people are starting the form, how many people are completing the form, how many people complete the form and it doesn't validate, how many people complete the form and it doesn't validate because of email. It was so much information that you had to code. Out of the box now, GA4 will tell you how many people start the form and how many people complete. So we've got this form abandonment rate, like how many people started but don't complete it. And that's when you can go in, and unfortunately it's not out of the box. You can go create all your tags. That if someone fills it out but they forgot the @ sign in their email and they hit submit and a pop-up says, hey, you've got the @ sign, fire that as an analytic tag, right? That's an event, an error event. And suddenly you can every month look at all your errors and go, oh my goodness, everyone's getting their phone number wrong. And you go and look, and it's because they have to put a hyphen, but you don't say anywhere that they have a hyphen. No one's using hyphens. They're just putting 407-922-5355 and boom, it's not validated. So those kind of form abandonment, right? Really good information. Obviously, scroll reach, we've discussed that. Video engagement, I don't know if anyone here is on YouTube tracking, but obviously
no one here has a YouTube channel.
No, Hamish Hamish owns Income Stream Surfers, which has 100,000 followers. That's the
well,
the
then there's a huge difference between someone viewed my video and someone viewed 80% of mine, right? And no one visits, right? Like if someone hits your video and watches, let's say it's a 5-minute video and they watch 12 seconds, really? Did they watch your video? No, but it fired off. You got a video engagement. Well done. To me, that's not again, it's good that it comes out of the box. It's not something we had before, but to me, I want to know, did they view 10%, 20%, 40%, 60, 80, 100? No one views 100, but 90%. And then boom, there's a difference. Your conversion rate is not someone viewed the video. It's someone viewed more than 50% of the video, all right? Those are kind of the most common ones. Any questions on those?
There's a lot to digest there. A lot to digest.
And I will quickly, I've got a thing, let's just quickly go through it. And there's tons of stuff here. If you go to, let's say, traffic acquisition, this report snapshot, ignore it, terrible, stay away from it, don't ever use it. All right, so they got another spike, direct traffic. Owen, what happened there?
Well, as we saw on the call the other day, there was like these big bot spikes from Ireland. I have no idea what that is.
That's 3 days ago. Yeah, so you can and by the way,
it's Pinterest. I'm pretty sure it's Pinterest, by the way. But
well, really, what you can do is you can do this, right? You can go, that's March 12th. Just show me the data for March 12th. That's all. Right?
Why Pinterest, Hamish?
Yeah, because we signed up like a year ago, and I think they're in Ireland, so I think that's why.
Pinterest are in Ireland.
Yeah, and they're trying to get us to use their ad service. Most of the big tech companies are in Ireland, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're the gateway to Europe, but 10,000 visits in a day?
No, but I mean Pinterest's own bots. I think they're doing something. I don't know what they're go to, but I'm pretty sure it's Pinterest. But anyway.
I would also like to spend a moment or two as well, like just having Hamish and Michael like chat for a sec, because obviously this group is set up originally by Hamish, and like me and Hamish were talking about how you could, because just so you know, Michael, the way that we create content and the way that we help people create content is we've written, or Hamish has written a Python script which integrates with ChatGPT. It researches the internet, it researches websites, researches, it can take in different kinds of data. And one of the things I thought would be really interesting is there some way of maybe including that, some of this tracking stuff in the Python script? So for example, when Hamish writes a listicle article, best shoes 2024, and he uses the Python script to automatically scrape the sitemap and place products into the article. So what would be really interesting is like a programmatic way of building analytics into a content generation script for organic SEO.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would have to think about that. And I know SEO has become, AI has basically taken over.
Well, what's really interesting, I mean, like the Google Core update was a couple of days ago, and certain tools that have been used to automate AI have been destroyed by the update, but ours has not. I mean, we were basically unaffected across nearly 50 client websites, and there's definitely something to be said for that. But what I'm just interested in, and it doesn't have to be now, of course, but it'd be very interesting to figure out how you can almost, like for a lot of people in this group, for example, like they're just starting with their sites, or they're starting to gain that early traction, or maybe they're a service-based business, whatever. How do you programmatically do or build in analytics so that a lot of that headache is kind of taken care of somehow? Like, I don't know, is there a tool that does that? Like, I don't know.
There is. There's totally, yeah, no, a lot of companies do. I wouldn't say a lot. I've worked with companies that do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
develop
it's
it
just,
into their system,
it's the dynamic content that you're creating. You've got to, you can, there are ways to do that.
Yeah.
But I just want to go through, and just sort of quickly go through some of these things in the UI. There are certain things, I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to give you some idea, right? So yes, you're right, that all that traffic came from Dublin, right? So it's all coming from Dublin. But you can see, you got users, sessions, engaged sessions, average engagement time, engagement session per user, etc. And you can tell 909,703 people came. Engaged sessions was 9.
Oh wow.
Right? Average session 0. Right? So this is a metric that there's something very wrong with, right? And that's something we would have to. But anyway, so you've got that. You've got your engagement. This is looking at events, for example. And again, everything is events these days. And I think so. You got your page view. You got your session started, first visit. So that's an event now. So if you want to see how do people, what the journey is on their first visit compared to their third, etc. Engagement, view items, scroll, etc. So those are your events. And then you got your event count, total users. And again, you can see, right, that page view, you've got 12,000 users, about 2 pages per person, 1.8 pages. 1.88 pages per person, right? And so you can see there, like this engagement, right? How many people are actually engaging? Well, it's about 6 times. So that's pretty good. So your engagement, you've got your conversions, you've got your landing pages. There's a bunch of other information that your e-commerce, etc. I'm going to get to most of that in a minute. All right, so that's your analytics. Let's talk about Tag Manager for a minute. And I don't know if anyone's used Tag Manager. For me, Tag Manager was a life changer, but and I'm sure most of you have not used it. Wendy, no. But
show
the
me
way
how.
Tag you have.
I said, show me how.
Okay. Well, Tag Manager to me is much better than using native code. So essentially, what you're doing is So just a regular website. When you have a regular website and someone comes to you and says, "Hey, we want to track when someone adds something when they click on a button, right? And we want to know what was on that button. When they clicked and added it to their basket, was it a gray shirt? What is it? We want all this information. You have to write this code, right? You go to a developer and you say, "Hey, you know that button that we have that you can add it to the cart or to the basket in this case? I want you to write code that tracks what it is, what the ID is, and all this information, and I want you to fire it off so we can track." So the developer goes in and writes this code. He then tests this code, and it's usually done locally. So he does it on his local machine. So it's not in the web, not on the internet. He's doing it locally. Then he deploys it to a staging environment, and he looks at the staging environment, and he looks at it and makes sure that it doesn't break anything, etc. Then he does a review, and he sends it to someone for approval. Then it gets deployed to the production using a deployment window that's off-peak hours. I've worked with clients like Disney here in Orlando. I was sitting at a table one day and chatting with someone doing something, and someone handed me a glass of champagne, and we all had a toast of champagne, and they were drinking a glass of champagne campaign, and it was the Disney Cruise Line, because it had taken them a year, full 12 months, to implement all the changes that they wanted on a specific thing. So sometimes when this deployment process, these sprints happen, you're not going to get yours in sprint 1 or sprint 3 or sprint 5. It's going to be in sprint 12, right? Tag Manager takes all of that away. It's all gone. No need for any of these steps at all. Instead, Tag Manager, what you do is you put, and I think I have it at the top, these two, you get this set of code in your head, and this is in the body. And all that does is it actually injects JavaScript onto the page. And a way to show this would be, so for example, if let's say I go to my old website here, right? One of the things you can do, by the way, on any site is you can go just inspect, right? And this inspect will tell you all the information on how that, what the style of it is, and gives you all the information if there's any errors on the page. It can tell you, for example, when you reload the page, what fires on the page. So when that page loads, you know what? This page doesn't have any. I didn't put any on. Anyway, so you can do a whole bunch of things with it. But one of the things that JavaScript does is JavaScript now gives you access to everything on the page. So you can click on, let's say, you can take this and you can say, hey, you know what? I want to change downtown Vancouver to New York. And boom, it changes it to New York. You can say, I don't want it to be blue. I want it to be pink, right? Oh, that's the border. Sorry. Font is probably down here somewhere. But let's say this border, and you want to give it a border that is, boom, now everything has a border. Too big. I want it smaller. Yeah, that's it. And what Tag Manager does is it puts JavaScript on the page where you can do that. You can literally go and change anything on the page, and you can put a little tag in here that says if anyone ever clicks it, fire off this picture. Don't need a developer anymore. You don't need that. You can literally just go find the ID and say this label. If anyone clicks an ID that has label info, fire off the picture. Your analytics code, for example, right? So your analytics code looks like this, right? You've got to write this code, and you've got to put your ID in here and do all this stuff. Or you can just open a Tag Manager, call it your page view, your analytics configuration, and you put your ID. Done. And you submit it. It hits your website, and now analytics is on your web. You try and get that through a development sprint, it could take 3 weeks, 4 weeks. In Tag Manager, you can do it in 1 minute, literally 1 minute. So big proponent of Tag Manager. Every client you have should have Tag Manager on it. And it has a few other things that are important. One is it has tag scripts and a tracking code, right? If you ever put, let's say this code, instead what it did is it tracked anyone that followed you on Facebook, clicked on the button that said follow me on Facebook. If you went to a developer and said, okay, fine, I want you to track every time someone clicks on Facebook, and I want you to fire off a pixel that says, what their name is. And suddenly GA comes to the thing saying, oh, you know what? You can't track people's names anymore. Then you go back to your developer and say, oh, you know what? Remove that. Well, that developer now has to go through all his code and try and find where is the code that does all that. Tag Manager, you have a tag that does it. You click on the tag called the Facebook tag, Facebook click tag. You click on it and you say, oh, you know what? Remove this one little aspect of it. Say publish, boom. 1 minute later, it's live. All right. So Tag Manager, what it does is you can create all these scripts, these tracking codes and tags, and it organizes them in a way that is very easy to change, manipulate, remove, add, etc., etc. TikTok wasn't around a year ago, maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Now with TikTok, there's a pixel you can put on your website, right? Well, someone sends you that pixel. If you go through a development cycle that takes forever, Tag Manager, you put that pixel in there, boom, it's live within an hour. It simplifies deployment using direct editing code, much easier. It has version control, so if something breaks, you could just go to the previous version and say, you know what, I did something wrong there. Let me go to the previous version, hit it live. Let me see if I can figure it out. It reduces dependency on developers. I'm an ex-developer. I love developers, but you want to avoid developers at all costs, right? Developers make mistakes. Developers get busy. Developers get sick. Developers don't like analytics because it's not real developing. There's just a million reasons you want to avoid them like plague. And again, I'm a developer. I love developers. But from an analytical point of view, the more you can avoid a developer, the better. Potential to improve website performance. So here we go. I assume everybody knows what a heat map is, right? Well, a heat map, you put a bit of code on your site, and actually, I think I've got one here, right? That actually adds a heat map to your site. So you can see where people are clicking and what people are doing, right? And you want to analyze how are people using your site? Is anyone actually getting to the bottom? Not really, right? You want to know that. You can imagine tracking this, how it slows down your site, right? How it slows down the entire site. So what you want to do is you want to put this on a page, let it run for 2 weeks, and then take it off, and then analyze the data. And what most people do that don't want to have Tag Manager. They go to a developer and they say, hey, can we add a heat map to our website? And they go, yeah. And they go and add it to all the pages. And it slows down every single page. And when you say go remove it, 2 weeks later, they'll remove it. In Tag Manager, you're going to go and add it. You're going to analyze it. And you're only going to put it on one page. You're going to tell Tag Manager, fire this off, but only fire it off on like my example here, right? You're going to say not all pages. You're going to say, you're going to click that. You're going to edit it. And you're going to say a page that contains Michael is the best forward, right? So it's only on one specific folder that you're going to track so that it doesn't slow down your homepage. You don't want your homepage slowing down for your SEO. You don't want all these other pages slowing down because people are purchasing stuff, but you want to know how are people using your blog. Analytics, Tag Manager, it's like that. You go in, add the tag, you do your analysis, you remove the tag. Very more difficult to do if you've got a developer that you have to work. A/B testing. Again, you're putting tag on a page that when someone goes to it, the image of the widget is going to change. So that person A sees this widget or this angle, person B sees this angle, person C sees this color with that angle, etc., etc. Well, all of that need to load in the back end, and it slows down. Nothing you can do about that. Yes, there is. You can tell Tag Manager, well, A/B testing is different because you have to fire it first before the page loads. But you can actually tell Tag Manager, only fire this after the page is loaded. Or for A/B testing, we're going to A/B test this page. We're going to do all this stuff on this one page. Once it's done, remove it. So again, nothing is slowed down. Enhanced data accuracy for analytics. Again, it's going to be much more accurate because you're going to actually be very specific in your tag, and the seamless integration for third-party marketing tools. Someone comes to you and says, hey, Michael, we want to add an AdWords tag so that we know when the AdWords converts, it fires off the tag so that AdWords knows what percentage of people that came to our website converted. Again, it's very easy to do in Tag Manager. You go create a tag, you put your code in there they literally, AdWords will give you a little snippet of code. Slap it in there, you publish it, and on that particular page, they will fire. All right, how it works. Okay, so it's asynchronous. There's all your stuff. Obviously, you get your information there. It has tag variables, so you can actually look at that data layer. And as soon as that data layer fires, and isn't it a perfect example, right? You can take a data layer where someone logs in to your website. And when they log in, one of the things you know about them is their name, right? So you can actually take that name, put it in a variable, and let's say, not a name, let's say you give them an ID number, right? And you can say, okay, oh no, here's a perfect example. You can just say, are they logged in or not? Someone hits your front page. Are they logged in? Yes or no? And if they're not logged in, you can actually take that variable, save it, and say not logged in. Or if they're logged in, save it as logged in, like a boolean. And then when you fire the pixel, you can look at your traffic. All the people that hit that landing page that you are trying to sell your widget, did people that were logged in have a different experience than people that were not logged in? Did people, and I mean, you can get stupid, like did people with the name Michael have a different than people named Karen, etc., etc. So you've got that. And then you've got triggers. You can trigger when something comes into view, right? Going back to the iSuit, you're not going to trigger off that full, they viewed all these products. You're only going to fire that when something comes into view. And essentially all it does is it's looking at this code, and it's looking at the code, and it's looking at the code. And when it hits something like, and it says an ID of comms, when that comes into view, fires off the picture. So it's much more accurate, right? I mean, I'm just such a proponent of Tag Manager. You really should do it. And then there's containers. And those containers, yeah, load the container, your GTM container, as soon as the page loads. Load it after the DOM is ready. So after the DOM is like how it looked, right? So you can load, like we used to, you can use, you don't really do it much anymore. We used to do lazy loading. So you load the top of the page, bottom of the page hasn't loaded. And when someone scrolls, it loads the rest. It lazy loads it. Well, you can do it after just the DOM is loaded, after whatever, right? You can do it after a window load, right? And initial content is on a page. So you're waiting for certain content to appear. When that appears, fine, then load your tag, right? Because if someone's logged in or not, you don't want your analytic firing first right away, because the code on the page, the JavaScript that looks to see if they're logged in, might take a 0.5 second, and your analytics is already fired because they're not logged in. But actually, 0.5 seconds later, boom, they're logged in because the JavaScript has gone, looked at the server, oh, they're logged in, boom. So you want to then fire off your tags at a specific time of it. So this is the do use. I said GA4, by the way, is the do not use. Do not go into GA4. And the reason you're not going to go into GA4 is because you're going to use a visualization tool, right? It's great to have data. It's great to have it, but you don't want a Wendy. You don't want a client that's hitting their head on their computer because it makes no freaking sense, because they've got no customers. They're selling all these products to Americans, but they've got no viewers from America, right? They don't understand it. Another perfect example, by the way, is this bot, right? So this bot that we have found, and I'll do it on a freaking snapshot even though I hate it. Well, that bot, when it loads, if you look at your data and you say, okay, that's a bot, and maybe it's not, maybe it is something else, but let's say that is just and I've got it just for that date now. code. So let's say the last 30 days, right? So if you look at the last 30 days, and you see a spike like that, you have to go remove that data. If you find that it's bad, not real data, you have to remove it, right? Because on that particular day, that accounted for 80% of your traffic. So on that particular day, no one bought a freaking thing. So your conversions are the same as the day before. You sold 50 things. The day before you sold 48. The next day you sold 47. But your conversion rate went from 6% to 0.000. And that's accurate, but it's not accurate because that's a bot. You're going to remove that traffic. So in your visualization tool, and I don't know if anyone's ever used one, Tableau, Power BI, Looker Studio, Domo, Excel could even be a visualization tool because you can go take all the data, export it, put it in Excel, and then put it into like a dash.
Just
right?
while we're here, Michael, I think it'd be really valuable for everyone in the group here to understand what are the top data points that people should be looking out for, right? Everyone here is in the earlier stages. So let's say what are the top 5 data points you would track if you were a service-based business or an e-commerce business just getting going? What's the foundation of the data?
So the way I always phrase that is you have to qualify the data. You have to qualify it. So if you look at users or you look at page views or you look at bounce rate or you look at whatever metric you look at, you have to qualify it. And essentially you do that through your KPI, right? So if you are the social media person and you're putting the stuff out on social media and then you go look at your analytics, you want to figure out, the example I always use, you put something out on Facebook that says get free puppies, right? Click here to get free puppies and you target a specific group, people that like pets, right? So boom, everybody's clicking on this get free puppies and they go to IT, whatever. So they go to a Suits web. Your visitor is going to be great. You can go to your boss and say, I got 10,000 people to come to your website. But until you quantify and you say, yeah, but that 10,000 people, how many of them viewed 2 pages? How many of them filled out a form that they want to, get your newsletter? How many of them said, okay, I want to follow you on Facebook? How many of them added something to cart? Every person's going to be different. Every website's going to be different. Every client's going to be different. Every campaign is going to be different. But essentially what you want to think about, and I know it's so easy to think, I want to sell more shoes. That's my KPI. It is not your KPI. That is not how you quantify whether traffic is good or bad. That's how you quantify whether traffic is good over a period of 6 months, because maybe it takes a user journey is 2 weeks long. Universal Studio. Someone to book a hotel room, their average user journey is about 3.5 months, right? So you put a campaign, you throw your shit at the wall and you hope something sticks, and your campaign runs for 2 weeks and you go, okay, did we sell anything? No, that campaign is terrible. Well, no, it takes them 3 months to make that decision because they're going to spend $12,000, right? So it takes more time. So really, it's different for each client, for each website, for each product, for each campaign, for each channel. But I highly recommend you look at your KPIs and then you say, how can I quantify, right? If you're looking at just how many people, you want to get just people, brand awareness, you just want people to see the brand, that's great. But then you have to use scroll. You have to see that they engaged and they didn't just ignore you. They didn't just hit the page and leave, right? They actually took some
brand awareness, you're looking for scroll and engagement and reading the article.
Well, yeah, brand awareness, you're definitely good for reading the article, but brand awareness, you're also a big one with brand awareness. It's fine to write a blog post about what a fantastic brand you are, but it's a completely different matter if they actually go view the brand, right? They actually go to the main site. So for brand awareness, you're definitely going to look at bounce rate and soft bounces, et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to make sure that if that's a guardrail, if your bounce rate goes up to 60%, it's a bad, and that's not bad for a blog, by the way. And also if you're doing banner ads where you pay per impression, not click, that's not bad. But that's going to be a guardrail. If that goes up to 85% or something, that's a guardrail. You're qualifying that track. And for any metric that you have, if it's e-commerce and it's not brand awareness, if it's just e-commerce, you've got a new product that that's hitting the market on Monday. You're going to do 2 campaigns, right? You're going to do a campaign leading up to that, getting people ready for a new product that you're about to sell. Then you're going to have a campaign that says this product is now available, and you're going to run that on every freaking channel, but all going to be the same campaign, but on every single channel. That e-commerce, you want to know, how many people looked at that product? Fine, but that is definitely going to be an add to cart at least, right? You definitely want to find how many people at least added it to cart. They may not have bought it because it might take them a few days to process whether they want to buy it. But if they added it to cart, that is what qualifies. That's what says the 10,000 3,000 people that you got didn't all click get free puppy, right? They actually did something you wanted them to do. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay. A visualization tool, obviously, having this data is fantastic. Not using it is that's where you're gonna die, right? Again, going back to that woman that gets on a plane, and this is a true story about woman that gets on the plane that writes a racist tweet and literally fired by the time she gets off the plane and stuff. But if you are tracking how many people are coming from social media, but you're not having an alert when that goes up by 3,000%, then why even track it, right? I mean, yes, it's nice to know that every month you have 500 people that come to your website from social media. Next month, 500 people. Next month, 500 people. Well, that's great. That's excellent. But unless you're actually using the data, it isn't very good. So visualization tool actually changes that. You don't have to go into Google Analytics and click around and remember that spike, right? Let's say that is bad. Let's say that's a bot, right? This is a bot, right? So you're going to remove that data. Well, anyone that ever comes into this page has to remember they have to go over here, they have to click there, they have to wait 12 minutes. They then have to take the metric and they have to say exclude that metric. Anyone that came from that town using this browser, exclude them. And what I guarantee you will happen is they'll do that, and then next month they'll go back in there and they'll forget to do it. And you're going to get a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's going to be, my conversion rate's supposed to be 7%. It's 1.2%. And they've forgotten to remove that traffic. And that's it. That's my spiel.
Very, very interesting. I think that there's a lot of questions this brings to mind, and particularly, there's a level of like, I think how to use this for people at the beginning of the journey is definitely the most prevailing question at the moment. And like also whether or not you should be going this granular in the early stages, and what is the what's the ground zero of this stuff, I think is definitely going to be a question that comes back from this. Where to start with it all, like in my eyes, if I was starting a blog in the morning and I said I'm going to do 30 posts a month for the next 12 months, I think for me it would actually be very meaningful to know where those drop-offs are for sure.
Well, I mean, look, I think you have to do it incrementally, right? So the idea is you're gonna create, let's say, 10 blog posts, right? The idea is look at your blog post and come up with a KPI. Come up with 5. And engagement can be one where they click on a link somewhere on the thing. That's great. Scroll could be another. But then come up with your KPIs about, okay, when they do what's the best thing? Oh, they buy our product. What's the second best thing? They do this. They add it to cart. What's the third best thing? They view the product. What's the fourth best thing? They actually go from the blog to this. What's the third best thing? They don't go there, but they look at 3 other blog pages, right? So then you figure all that out, and then you go, okay, how do I track that? How do I track that? Let's make sure all the tracking's there. Make sure all your events are being tracked, all the clicks are being tracked. Then now you've got that. And GA4 is going to be a real pain. So go create a dashboard and say, this is my dashboard for these 20 blogs that I'm going to do. And then immediately you will be able to tell, oh, you know what? One tracking thing is not working. Look, the data is really bad. Go in, fix that, and whatever. So I think you sort of have to do it incrementally. You sort of have to look at it, figure out how do you quantify it, qualify it, make sure all the code is there to qualify it, and then make sure you put it in a visualization tool that can actually be used, as opposed to someone's got to go figure out how to find that in GA somewhere.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And like just for the guys in the group, a couple of just quick points. For example, and it's random, I know, but one of the guys in our group is a photographer, right? He does wedding photos.
Right.
So this level of data, how would you go about applying it to a site like that, where the KPI is to get someone to, well, the main KPI anyway is to get someone to book time with you? How does one go about that? Is it someone reaches a blog post and looks at 5 photos, and therefore now you know that someone is interested in seeing your photos, or
So again, that's a really good example. The reason that's a good example is because essentially what you've got, and I don't know if anyone is married, but if you've ever gotten married, the process of doing the simplest thing is so hard. Picking a photographer is hard, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to hit this website for a photographer. You're not going to book him because you're going to go look at 10 others, right? And then you're going to come back. So with any, like a photographer, for example, it's not on the first visit. It's guaranteed. guarantee not going to happen on the first visit. So you have to figure out a way to bring them back. You have to figure out a way to bring them back. And obviously sign up for something or whatever you've got. Follow us on Facebook, you've got. But you can also in analytics, you can go create a segment or an audience. And it's anyone that came to your website, but that did not sign up. Anyone that clicked on a button, but did not sign up. Anyone that did this, that did not sign up. And let's say you're a photographer that does bar mitzvahs and weddings. You want to know that anyone that clicked on bar mitzvah and did not sign up, you're going to create a segment for them, a group, and then you're going to share that. It's an analytic, a Google product. You're going to share that segment with AdWords. In AdWords, you can actually go in and go to my analytics and show me all my segments or my audience. And the one audience is going to be bar mitzvah and one's going to be wedding. And you're going to then put out an ad only for those people. So when you do your AdWords campaign, the bar mitzvah people will see a little bar mitzvah ad, and the wedding people will see a wedding ad. If you have never been to my website, you will not see my ad, right? So all you're trying to, and that ad will run for a week because you know the decision's made within a week, right? So all you're going to do is you're going to try and bring them back because you know it wasn't on the first visit, right? And you know that they looked at bar mitzvah, they did not look at wedding. So you don't want to show them a thing saying I'm a great photographer. You want to say I'm a great bar mitzvah photographer in your ad, right? So there are different things that you can do to get them back. But like wedding photographer, it's a perfect example of that's not a first visit conversion. It never is a first. No one hits a page the first time and signs up for something. They just don't do it. If they're looking for a wedding especially, right? Because there's thousands of them, and the price ranges are huge. So it's different. But yeah, did they look at 5 different pictures? Did they go look at my catalog, right? And what picture did they keep coming back? Maybe I can use that in my ad, right? Maybe I can put banner ads out there with that picture, right? That kind of thing. So there's things that you can do. It's hard. It's very, very, very hard. And your incremental lift in conversions is going to be small. It's going to be small. But if you can get 1,000 people to your photography site and you can bring 100 of them back, that 100, I can guarantee you, is going to convert at a much higher level than the initial 1,000. So much higher. That 1,000 is going to convert at 0.003%. That 100 is going to convert at 30, right? Because you know they come back, they like your product. Now let's convert them. And again, when they come back, what do? You know what you do? You give them a landing page. Don't bring them back to the home page. Don't bring them back to the product page that they looked at. You're going to create a landing page specifically for them because you know they clicked on the bar mitzvah ad. So when they hit the landing page, it's going to say, I'm the best bar mitzvah photography, and all the pages are going to be about bar mitzvahs. But if they click on the wedding ad, it's all going to be about, I'm the best wedding photographer, and here's all my wedding pictures, right? So you're going to do things to not only get them back, but you're going to try and A/B test the crap out of that landing page, right? So you're going to do certain things that also get that conversion rate from 30% 40%. But it's hard to get them, right? They may go to the second site, sign up, and boom, they're never going to come back. But it's not easy.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting though. It's very interesting. Anyone, any questions, please throw them in the WhatsApp group now and we can ask them briefly. But yeah, very interesting.
Sorry, I did mumble on.
Say again?
I mumbled for hours.
I think your connection's gone a bit low. But yeah, amazing session. I think for anyone who hasn't really delved into analytics yet and gone down this path, like there's a lot there to think about. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming along to the session. And we may get Michael back to look at some more specific scenarios in the future, which I think will be really interesting. But I think what he said about know your KPIs is it's just so important. I mean, otherwise, what are we doing really? I mean, we're blogging, we're doing ads, we're working with influencers, we're using different platforms. But if you don't know why and how to track those whys, then it's kind of shooting in the wind. So big thanks to you, Michael, for your time.
No, you're welcome. And just always think free puppies. You ever get a campaign or you get something, think free puppies. If my button said free puppies, it would be terrible, but I get all this traffic. Always think free puppies. I always think of 2. One is get free puppies and the other one's get cancelled, right? No one's going to click on the bottom one and everyone's going to click on the top one, right? So think of it that way.
So you got to find what your get free puppies is.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, what a beautiful way to finish it off. Michael, thanks so much for your time.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye now.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.